this is a video I decided to make to talk about my experience switching out my handlebars and hand grips for this is a Pro Taper CR Mid handlebar and the Oxford Adventure heated grips. And obviously this is going to be a retrospective because you can see they're already installed. I'm not going to do a step-by-step, but I did want to go through some of the obstacles that I faced as I installed these in case anybody else is going to do a similar setup. There was a lot of surprises for me that I didn't see on other videos I'd watched, so hopefully this will help somebody. First of all, I wanted to talk about the handlebars. Now, in a previous video, in I think it was my 1,000-mile review, I said I was completely happy with the stock handlebars, and really I was. But the reason I decided to change them out after all wasn't because I didn't like how these felt, but it was because of these Oxford grips. They come with super glue. I'll talk a little bit about that later. And I thought if I'm super gluing these on some handlebars, I want to make sure that they're good quality handlebars. I mean, maybe it's just me believing the hype, but everybody says these bend really easily. Thankfully, I haven't had a chance to experience that personally, but I thought, well, if I'm going to stick these expensive hand grips on some handlebars permanently, hopefully it's not permanently. I think I could probably get them off if I wanted to, but I thought with super glue, I may as well do it all at once. So that's what I did. And because I like these stock, I tried to find something that was as close to stock as I could. And these Pro Taper CR Mids are sort of close. They're not actually as close as I thought. Maybe I'll see if I can get a closer view. The rise is pretty close. They're a little bit shorter, narrower narrower, not shorter. They're about the same height with the riser that you need to switch to the fat bar. That's one thing I figured I'd do. I like the idea of not having a crossbar here, so I can have a little bit more space to mount stuff if I want. And I just like the look of it. But in any case, if you don't have the crossbar, you have the fat bar, and you need these adapters to go from your 7/8 to the 1 1/8 inch bar. One thing that, again, this is me being a noob. One thing that I didn't realize I had to find out because I was really concerned about was that when you get the fat bars, it's only fat right here. Out here, it's still the 7/8, so you don't need to worry about your controls and everything. I thought I was gonna have to do all sorts of crazy stuff up here if I got the fat bar. Not true, sort of, but we'll get to that later. Anyway, so the CR Mid with the 1 1/8 inch adapters makes it about the same rise. I don't know if you can see that. Maybe I'll get a different angle here in a minute. But again, the stocks come back a little bit more towards you as you're riding, and they're a little bit longer. Now, in a minute, I'll take these out so you'll see how it goes and I'll comment on it then. I haven't ridden these yet, I just barely finished. Theoretically, the length of the width of the handlebars, it's gonna, the wider it is, the I guess more fine tuning you can do with your steering, because the farther out you are from the axis, the more you have to move it to turn it a little bit. So like if you're driving something this close, you turn a little bit and it would really jank you. So the farther out you are, the more fine-tuned controls you have. Now, I don't think this is maybe 1/2 inch on each side, maybe an inch, I don't know. I don't think that's going to be noticeable, but I'll let you know if it is. Now, the actual handlebar installation was pretty straightforward. Not a lot of surprises there. You take the old stuff off, loosen everything up, slide it off, take it off, put in your adapters here, and then the new one goes on. Now, I will say you want to make sure before you put these on, you want to kind of slide your your handlebars out and get the controls on, because there's not enough cable to, like if this was mounted, you don't have enough cable to pull the controls all the way off. So just make sure you have everything on the way you want it before you put these tops on to mount it down. The real tricky part came in. And a lot of people are worried about cable length. Of course, I didn't go any higher than the stock, so I wasn't worried about it. I actually kind of had the reverse problem, because what I ended up doing with these Oxford grips, I got the Oxford Adventure, which I didn't realize when I ordered them. You know, I just saw the Adventure and I thought, well, I want to be an adventure rider, so that's the ones I'm going to get. But they are the longest model you can get. So quite a bit longer than stock. If you see, I mean, it's maybe 3/4 of an inch longer. And I didn't want to chop off that much. I'm still gonna have to chop off a little on the throttle here, just when I get my my hand guards that go all the way around. But on the clutch side, I don't have to cut anything off, and most people do if they go with the Adventure Oxford on this bike. But I didn't want to cut off any, or as little as possible, and so what I did is I mounted the controls in a little bit so I could slide these on farther. And that was a little tricky because many of you may know this, but there's a hole here that there's a little pin or a protrusion on these controls that goes into that to keep it from rotating. And there's a lot of ways you can, well, there's 3 ways you can deal with that. One, you can just ignore it, clamp it on, and then you're gonna have a janky fitted control. That's obviously the least desirable in my opinion. The other way that a lot of people do is they just grind off the protrusion in these controls. They just take out the little metal piece, grind off that protrusion. The benefit of that is you don't have to know exactly where to drill this hole, which is kind of a little bit tricky on the new bars. You can just kind of fit it where you want and tighten it down. The concern with that is this, I think that would work fine on the clutch side. On the throttle side, without that, it actually does move a little bit. Probably put some rubber in there, do something to keep it firm. But I wanted to go with the drilling the holes in the new bars. So again, if I was using the stock grips or grips that were the same width, then it would be a lot easier. I would have just measured this and put a hole in the same spot. But these are quite a bit wider, so what I did is I measured on both sides. I measured the distance from the inside of the grip to the hole, and then did a similar distance from the inside when, you know, slid this grip all the way up on the new bar, or at least put it next to it so I could see how far it was going to go, and then did a similar distance. And then I had them both off. I set them on the ground and just got the angle as perfect as I could so I could see where on this it was. And then I did drill. This is, I don't know what size this is, but I went with a 1/4 inch drill bit, which is a little bit bigger than this, to give myself a little bit of wiggle room. And these Pro taper bars are thicker than the stock bars, so I didn't even have to drill all the way through. I went in maybe 1/8 of an inch, little bit more, and I wasn't even through. But I knew I was plenty far enough for what I needed, because that indentation only goes in maybe 1/8 of an inch, and it worked fine. I'm happy with where these controls are mounted. Now it does. So obviously the mirrors come in. If you're pushing the controls in, the mirrors come in too. I was worried that I might push them too far and start eating into this part where it bends down and starts to fatten up down towards the mounting point. But it wasn't. It was just fine. You can see. But moving them in, it also moved the rear view mirror in a little bit. So I was a little bit worried about when I hitting the windscreen, but you can see I just missed it. I just miss it. That did make me worry about when I get my guards on, but I don't think that's going to make any difference in terms of where these things are, because that mounts to the end and the inside. So we'll see how that goes. If I run into any issues, I may make a video about it. But anyway, so that was the first obstacle, is getting that little hole in the right space relative to these larger, wider grips. I got that done, and I got everything mounted. I put the controls on, mounted them in, and I was okay. Then the hard part came with getting these Oxford grips onto the bars themselves. Now there's two problems. One, this Pro Taper bar comes with, on the clutch side, it's like a gridded pattern, grippy handlebar end, which I think would be great for just a normal rubber grip because it's going to hold it better. Major pain for these because the Oxford grips have a rigid plastic tube in there to hold, the electronics that heat up. And so it doesn't bend around the that gridded pattern that's pounded into the handlebar. So the first thing I did was I put the glue on, thinking that's going to lubricate it up a little bit, and I started twisting it on, and I just got stuck. I could not move, and it's super glue, so it's like leaking out, getting on my hands. It was just a mess. So I kind of panicked when it wasn't moving anymore, so I was able to wrestle it back off. I still need a little bit of acetone on here to clean up some of the super glue mess. But anyway, I cleaned off all the super glue. Then what I did was, and then I filed out the inside of the Oxford grip, just mostly just to get the super glue out, not to make it bigger. Couple things on the Oxfords. If you read the instructions, they mention, there may be some rubber overflow from when it was poured, I guess, inside, and you should file that out. Now, if you see that, if you get a pair of these, you may think, well, the rubber will just kind of like bend and squish around as I put it on, so it'll be fine. The anal retentive part of you may say, oh, I want it to be actually perfectly clean in there. Pay attention to the anal retentive part of you on that. Any little thing in there is a nightmare when you're putting it on. So, and they say use a file. It's rubber and soft, so file is hard. I took a razor blade with some needle nose pliers and kind of scraped it out that way. And then once I got it mostly out, I did use a file. And so, and then I actually used the graded pattern on the Pro Taper bars themselves. I kind of put it on dry and just kind of twisted, used it to kind of like almost sand the inside of this, and then I pulled it off, put it on I didn't go all the way. I went about halfway, and then I pulled it off, turned it backwards, and kind of did the same thing to the other end. And then I'd heard that a lot of people use hairspray, and I thought that was going to be less panicky if it starts to dry and I can't move it. So I soaked it with hairspray, soaked the inside with hairspray, and then I was able to get it on fairly easy, and now it seems solid as a rock. Now on the throttle side, kind of similar to what Pro Taper did, Honda, at least on the rally models, I don't know if this is true on the L's, I imagine it is, but anyway, I could not get the grip off at all. It just wouldn't budge. I tried squirting some lubricant in there. I didn't have the adapter for my air compressor to try and blow it like a lot of people did, but I knew I wasn't going to keep it, so I just cut it off. But the throttle tube has all these raised rectangular bars all over it, again, to kind of add grip, but those bars extend out farther than the rigid tube of these Oxford grips. Like it is impossible to get it over them. So I ended up sanding those down quite a bit. Just kind of, I used like a sanding block type of sponge thing to try and stay just up, on the same level as the higher leveled things. And I'd sand for a while all the way around, and then I'd kind of put it on, see if I could cram it on. And I finally was able to get it over that lip, and I knew I'd be able to get it all the way on. But I was a little worried because of that I knew because of the rigid plastic inside the Oxford grip, I knew that it wasn't going to have a connection all the way around, like surface on surface, because the rigid connection was going to be kind of pulled out a little bit because of those raises. So on this one, I did use the super glue. Once I knew I could kind of start squeezing it on, I put super glue just at the end because I didn't want it squirting out this end again on me and getting my hands all super gluey. So I put a little bit on the inside of the grip and a little bit around the edge of the throttle tube, and I was able to get it on, and it seems to be super solid too. It doesn't twist. I mean, obviously it twists, but it doesn't twist more than it should. And that is how I did that. So those are a couple of obstacles that I wasn't expecting going into it that were kind of a pain. Anyway, I'm going to take the phone down and try and zoom in on some stuff. I'll try to be as steady as I can. I know I've had some complaints with other videos. That's why I've got this mounted, and I'm just kind of like talking to you. You probably can't see very well from this angle. I'll try to get some good shots and help people with things that I had problems with, hopefully. Okay, first of all, I wanted to, in a closer way, show you how this CR Mid Pro Taper bar lines up with the stock bar. Now you can see it's not too far off, but it's a little bit shorter, and it doesn't come back as far towards the rider. Now, if you are using the same setup as me and you have the Pro Taper adapters that take you from the 7/8 inch to the 1 1/8 inch, you'll want to put them in with the skinny side pointing out. In the instructions, they say that the center point to the center point should be between 3.5 and 4 inches. Mounted this way, they are almost exactly 3.5 inches. If you put them the other way, so the fat part's out, then it takes the center point to a little over 4 inches. I really don't know that it would matter too much because there's plenty of bar to keep it flat at that point, but I followed the instructions. So if you want to do the same thing, keep the thin point towards the out. Now, to mount the Oxford controller itself, like a lot of other people, I flattened the mounting bracket so it's perfectly straight. From the company, it comes with a bend that sends it back. It would send it right into the rearview mirror on this bike. Now, there's other solutions you could do. I thought about drilling out the hole a little bit, turning it upside down, and then just, threading the rearview mirror through it, so that would have worked, but this is just a simple solution. Now, the holes on the mount are a little bit farther apart than the holes for this bracket here. So for your lever bracket. So I just took a little round file and filed the top hole down a little bit, the bottom hole up a little bit, and I was able to bring in those holes so I could get the bolts through and mount it. I didn't use, it comes with spacers. If you want this whole thing to be out a little bit, you could. Oxford sends a couple spacers and different adapters. So if you want to go that way, you can. Now you can see the angle that I have the bottom cables. I've seen these mounted on different bikes at all sorts of different angles. Some people have them so they kind of drop straight down the back, which would make it a little bit more hidden from your riding view. But it to me has more potential to interfere with levers, stuff like that. Oxford recommends you mount it downwards. You can kind of see the angle I got. Let me go to the other side. All right, so on this side, again, it's mounted downward. You can see that Oxford that they have a a down arrow here that's pointed to where they think you should have the down part be, and that's what I did. Gave it a little bit of slack, and it turns easily, no issues there. Now the model I have is the premium, which its main thing is the intelligent heat controller. So what that means is that you can connect it directly to the battery, and it is going to sense when the bike isn't running, and after a couple of minutes it turns itself off. And so I decided to just do that rather than I thought about connecting it to a switch controlled power line, but because this has this intelligent heat control built in, I figured I'd make it easy on myself and ran it straight through to the battery. Now obviously you need to take off the seat. The battery is on the left side here, right under here, so you need to take off this panel. It's all easy except for there's one push pin funky thing right under there that you need to kind of get under and poke out the pin part of it to lift it up so it loosens it out. I was able to just kind of like wiggle it and finally got it out without having to get some sort of a hook because it's in an awkward location. I didn't take this panel all the way off. I just kind of pulled it out to get to the battery. While I was on the battery, I connected I have a battery tender that I've been wanting to hook up. So can't remember what these are called, but you've seen them. I hooked one of those directly to the battery at the same time that I hooked the power for the heated grips, and I just zip tied this down. And then for the wires for the heated grip, with this kind of pulled back, I could see some holes that I could thread it through, and I kind of just reached around both sides, fiddled with it until I got it through. Came up through, you're not gonna be able to see, but you can see I brought everything up and just kind of zip tied everything down to make it look as nice as I could. There's quite a bit of excess cable that I just zip tied together. I will say regarding the wiring, I did as Oxford recommended, which is when I hooked the power up to the battery, before I mounted everything, I just plugged in all the wires and turned this on and made sure that both the grips heated up before I mounted them. That would have been very discouraging to find out I had a faulty one after I'd gone through all that trouble. So definitely recommend you do that. They did heat up great for me. Beyond that, I haven't tested them at all. So I'm going to hop on and take a ride now. We'll see how the grips work and how I like this slightly different shaped handlebar. All right, we'll see in a bit. All right, here goes our test drive. Mid-30s, I'm guessing right now, Fahrenheit. Have the camera angled down a little bit lower. Hopefully you'll be able to see my controls as I do this. Now I'm wearing, normally on a day like this I'd be wearing my thick ski gloves that insulate really well. Right now I'm just wearing these Climbs. They're supposed to be windproof. I have found them not to be super warm on days like this, so let's kick this on. I'm going to take it up to, well, let's try 70%. So far the handlebars, they feel great. I don't feel really much difference at all, which is what I was hoping for. The controls do feel like I got it in the right spot. The turn signal feels just fine to me. I like these thicker grips. Oh, they're getting warm. I can feel it. Okay, so at 70%, now again, I think it takes a little longer to heat up, but I can definitely feel it. It's feeling nice. Obviously, when my fingers are out here on the clutch lever and the brakes, I feel them getting a little bit colder, but I can just bring them in and then they kind of get warmed right up. But yeah, I'm liking these grips. I can feel them. Just out of curiosity, I'm going to kick it up to 100. I've heard people say it gets uncomfortably hot. I'll see if that's true. All right, I do feel it getting warmer. It's not uncomfortably hot yet, just kind of nice. But it hasn't been very long, and it's going through plastic and rubber and leather, so it may take a minute for it to get to me. All right, still at 100%. It's feeling nice, but it's certainly not uncomfortably hot. Just feels good. I will say, I had these gloves that I bought. They weren't specifically for motorcycling. They were just heated gloves. $100 I paid for them. And I ended up taking them back after one ride because I couldn't feel any difference at all. I mean, I could if I wasn't riding, but as soon as that wind hit them, it just sucked all the warmth right out. And I'm sure there's way better ones specifically for motorcycle riding, but that's when I decided to try the heated grips, and I can say these are way better. And when I'm holding on to the grip, even the back of my fingers don't feel uncomfortable, which is kind of weird. I guess it just kind of radiates. This seems to be solid as a rock. So I was just going 55-ish for a few minutes. Just wanted to get a little speed so the wind would hit me faster and harder. And these are really nice. I haven't experienced the too hot for comfort that some people talk about. It just feels great to me at 100%. Again, it's mid-30s, a little bit of a chilly day, but my hands have never felt this good and this warm. Even with my ski gloves, they keep them pretty warm, but with these thinner gloves that are supposedly wind resistant, it feels just really nice. I'm loving it. All right, so it's been, I don't know, 10 minutes. The high is maybe getting a teeny bit warm. I'm gonna drop it down to, what is that, 80%? Whatever that number 2 one is, I can't see it right now. Which makes me happy. I was hoping it'd get a little hotter than I wanted. And that makes sense too, that it just takes a few minutes to really radiate through all the different layers. But yeah, I feel like it's even still getting warmer now on the 80%. So, initial thoughts, huge fan. Would I do the bar again? I don't know. I mean, probably. It makes me feel better knowing that I've got a firmer bar. I mean, I honestly can't tell a difference in the handling. Of course, I'm not doing anything technical at all. I'm just on the road. But knowing my skill level, I don't think I'll be able to tell anything. Like I said, I might twist them just up just a hair, just to kind of, I feel like they may be angled just a hair down. But you know, that's all just micro adjustments that you do with any bike. But you know, I certainly don't feel any difference in terms, you know, I was wondering about the length, the width of these things, and I certainly don't feel any noticeable difference. So these ones are great. I think I would choose these ones again if I had it to do over. I looked at the Tusk Chub bars that are quite a bit cheaper. This was $70. I think the Chub one is $40. But I just decided to go with this one because in fact, I'll put a link to it on Rocky Mountain ATV's site. They have this huge list of the dimensions of all sorts of different handlebars, and this one was the closest I could find to the OEM factory, at least based on what I saw. Keeping in mind that you add 3/4 of an inch for the adapter that takes you from the 7/8 to 1 1/8 inch. So whenever you're looking at those, if you're doing the same thing and you're trying to, stay the same as stock, or you're trying to rise up a certain amount, and just keep in mind that the adapter itself raises you 3/4 of an inch. Not sure what that is in millimeters or centimeters or whatever, but 3/4 of an inch. Add that to the height measurement on any of the handlebars you look at. And again, I'll put the link to that list. That it was really helpful for me. I'm going to take it down one more notch. What is that? 70%. It feels to me like maybe the right one is a teeny bit hotter than the left one. I don't know. That may just be my imagination, or the sensitivity of my hands, or the direction the wind's blowing. There's lots of different factors, so definitely not anything major. Just something that sort of feels that way right now. So even at pretty decent speed, I got up to about 72, 73 miles an hour there, and I could just still feel the warmth coming through. We're sitting at 70% now. It's actually feeling pretty sustainable. Like, it's not getting hotter, but it's not too cold. I think this is, for the current temperature, 70% is the right spot for me. I do see all those wires there sticking out though, so I think I will do a better job of zip tying those closer to the frame. Maybe get another spot, just because I'm anal and I don't like that. But other than that, I'm really happy with this install. Finishing up here, I'm going to turn this off, just so you know, you don't have to wait for it to automatically turn itself off. You just hit the down arrow hit the low temp until it turns off. Okay, I'm back. I did zip tie those cables in, and it's a lot less noticeable now. You can see from the driving position, you can't really see anything. One tip that, in case you don't think of it, when you're trying to organize these cables, turn your handlebars all the way to the right, so you open up this whole space. It's just going to make things a lot easier if you happen to put them there like me. One other thing to mention is on the throttle tube, it does flare out, so you do need to chop off the very end of it. That'll be obvious, but in case you weren't counting on that, do. Also, me bringing this in as far as I did, the throttle tube only goes to about right there. So this is just open space, but these grips are pretty rigid, so I'm not really worried about it. I think I will need to cut off, I'll definitely need to cut off about that much when I get my hand guards, that, the full metal or aluminum hand guards. I'll need to cut off about that much, but that's pretty typical. And so it won't be that much of the grip that doesn't have throttle tube beneath it. But just so you're aware, if you do it like I did, where you want to kind of scoot as much of the grip onto the bar as you can, unless you get a new throttle tube that's longer, they probably make those, but the factory throttle tube, it's going to be a little bit shorter than your grip. If that bothers you, then you'll need to cut your grip down more or get a different model than the Adventure. These are the longest ones. Also, one thing I didn't mention is that the Pro Taper bar comes with this cover. Actually, I'm not sure if it came with the bar or these adapters. I think it came with the bar. Anyway, it fits on over there and Velcros around if you want it. I'm kind of, I don't know if I like it or not, but just note that if you want it there, it's going to make it a little tricky to get your key into that key slot. Let me see. So, you know, it's doable, but it kind of is an awkward location. So keep that in mind if you're going to go with this little pad here. I don't know, it kind of looks cool. Maybe I'll keep it. We'll see. Just do a quick walk around so you can see what they look like from all angles. I know when I was looking at Oxford grip installations, I was wishing that they got a little closer on some spots. I don't know what spots those would be for you, but I'll walk around the whole bike. See what the handlebars look like. All right, thanks for watching.